Once again, thank you for joining us for this session. Feel free to scan the QR code for any questions. And please join me in welcoming our speaker, Naga Surendran.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this session on app innovation in the AI era, cost, benefits, and challenges. My name is Naga Surendran. I lead product marketing in the Azure Digital and App Innovation Solution area. I would like to introduce my co-presenter, Scott Hunter. Scott, do you want to introduce yourself?
So thank you. I want to first off, the title, I'm not sure what that really means. We're going to talk about how you can take existing applications, modernize them to the cloud, add some AI to them, without really changing them a whole bunch. I think it's going to be very exciting. Before we start, I actually like to have all my people that worked on the demos stand up on both sides. Just say thank you to these folks. These folks are why this works today. And my intro, I used to work in .NET. I've been working in Azure the last couple of years. We build a lot of the services you probably use for compute, like app services and functions and Azure Container Apps. But let's get started.
Scott's part of the early Azure team, right? So today, I'll be sharing some customer trends to begin with, where we see customers modernizing their apps and how they are infusing AI into their applications. So following that, Scott and his team will walk you through our product innovation with a great set of demos and product walkthroughs. Before we jump in, first off, I think it's great to see folks in person here in Seattle for the second year in a row. So that's awesome. But we also have a large group of folks joining us online. So thank you all for taking the time to be here. Now, I'm excited to talk to you all today about this incredible opportunity in front of us. Now, for those of you in the room, let's do a quick check on how many of you are still managing sort of applications that were written multiple years ago, maybe decades, still running on premises. If I can see, show of hands. Maybe a quarter, maybe a half. So that's still a good chunk that needs to sort of think about this modernization journey. How many of you are experimenting with AI apps or using AI in your enterprise apps? OK, that's about a third or so. So pretty leading edge group here, which is great. Now, I'm sure it's not a surprise to any of you that AI has completely changed the dynamics of what customers now start to expect from your apps, right? So it's a matter of time. Now, every app will be reinvented with AI, and new apps will be built with AI that weren't possible before. Now, the question is not if, but when, right? Now, for all the developers in the room, as well as the IT pros, you're wondering how. So that's what we are here to answer, and Scott's team will also go through a bunch of product updates on how we are enabling that journey. So the good news is you're not alone in this, right? So every customer is kind of going through this journey. And when we think about the value of AI in applications, there are two dimensions that we look at. First is many customers are looking at how they can sort of increase efficiency by reshaping the business processes. Now, Microsoft has worked with several customers that have taken this path, and we have developed product capabilities and a set of repeatable best practices, reference architectures, and so on. Now, on this slide, you see a small subset of customers that have already modernized their apps with AI. I'm going to give you an example of one of those customers, H&R Block. Now, anyone who has done taxes, especially in the US, know it can be a lot of entering data or making sense of a lot of information, right? So with H&R Block, about 1/4 of their business is conducted in a span of just a few days. The mad rush to file taxes towards the deadline. So every moment of client interaction matters. So to help customers to streamline this tax preparation process, H&R Block introduced AI Tax Assist, a generative AI experience based on Azure OpenAI service. What AI Tax Assist provides is you can use natural language to query for information on tax forms, deductions, credits, and answer questions about the tax code and more. I wish I had this AI Tax Assist when I was filing my taxes last several years. So in addition to this, H&R Block also leveraged AI to offer a more personalized search experience to their tax professionals so that they can get the information about their client in an instant and offer that personalized experience, whether the client is moving from online to in-person, or they are moving from one city to another, they have that continuity of information. Now, the thing to note here is what helped H&R Block embrace this AI innovation faster is they were already on the path of digital transformation with Azure. These AI applications are built on the same Azure environment within H&R Block. Switching gears a little bit, AI applications are also enabling customers to reinvent customer engagement. Again, a good group of customers here and the scenarios on how you can reinvent that customer engagement with personalization, content generation, enabling seamless service and support, as well as what we call build your own copilot to help your customers on a variety of things. Now, TomTom is a leading technology company that makes location technologies that relied by hundreds of millions of drivers. What TomTom did is they changed how drivers reach their destination with their navigation solution, but recently they recognized that drivers today want more than just a best route. For example, their users might want to leverage the car system to find the nearest charging station, or find a good lunch spot on their route, or make even a dinner reservation. So TomTom created Digital Cockpit, an immersive in-car infotainment system for automobile manufacturers to customize this experience. With this Digital Cockpit, what TomTom has enabled is for drivers to communicate in a natural language way with voice-based interaction that is built upon Azure OpenAI Service, Azure Kubernetes Service, and Cosmos DB. So you can use voice interaction to navigate to a certain location, find certain specific stops, or even vocally control many of the onboard systems. Again, what has enabled TomTom to be AI-ready faster when the technology arrived is the fact that they completed their migration and modernization a couple of years ago of about 187 applications and more than 4,000 virtual machines. So that was a massive endeavor. But that really enabled them to quickly get up to speed on the AI innovation. The TomTom team here at Build, so please don't miss the opportunity to go meet them and interact with them at the expert meetup area. So just to kind of understand this trend a little bit more, IDC and Microsoft did a joint study about cloud migration and modernization trends in the context of intelligent apps or AI apps. What we found out is about a third of migration and modernization decisions are now being triggered based on the AI use cases. Not a surprise, given all the business decision makers are asking developers and IT pros, how can we speed up our AI adoption, right? So, and the benefits of these AI apps are significant, as you saw in the couple of slides before. Now, while AI is top of mind, foundational elements on security and data privacy are also critical drivers for cloud migration. And finally, IDC found that customers who took this journey have seen significant benefits with faster innovation, time to market, and really the agility to react to market conditions as technology trends evolve faster. So that's a little bit about what we are seeing in the trends. With that, I would love to sort of hand it over to Scott and his team to go a little deeper on our product innovations and how it can help you accelerate your modernization and AI application journey. Awesome. Over to you, Scott.
Thank you, Naga. I'll just let you know we have like 2 or 3 more slides, and we're going to do a bunch of demos, which is my favorite part of doing a talk at Build. So some of the things we've learned, and there's a white paper in fine print that you might be able to read over there that kind of talks about some of the things that happen as you move your apps to the cloud. One of the things we learn is if you build brand new apps in the cloud, you can build them at a much more rapid pace than you can if you build them on premise. There might be a variety of reasons for this. It's easier to get hardware. There's technology that's already there that you don't have to go build yourself. So we do see an acceleration in building apps as you move to the cloud. Obviously, if you're in the cloud, we have great offerings both in GitHub and Azure DevOps for doing things like DevSecOps. And so it's built into the systems. And because of that, you get more efficiency there as well. And then developers all up are just more productive in the cloud. And the biggest thing is, and we're going to talk about some of our platform as a service services in a second, your downtime is going to go down. Because if you're on premise, somebody's job is to, at midnight or whatever time, go update the operating system or update the runtimes And in the cloud, we do a lot of that for you, and it's going to reduce your downtime by up to 25%. And the point of all this is, if you add all that together, that gives you more time to take your applications and AIify them. So next, this is kind of AI ready with Azure, and you're probably aware of many of these things. You know, we have amazing solutions, all the Azure AI services, including Azure OpenAI, which everybody's probably familiar with. We have Azure Machine Learning, and we have Azure AI Studio, which is a great place to just kind of play around and test all the AI tech. On the application services, we have everything. If you want industry-supported Kubernetes, we've got that with AKS. If you want to use what we call platform as a service, we have 3 offerings: Azure App Service, the easiest way to move an on-prem app to the cloud; Azure Container Apps, if you want to run containers in the cloud but don't want to manage the Kubernetes, we can do that. And then finally, Azure Functions. We're going to do a demo of that in a little bit. That's a way of doing serverless functions in the cloud, and we're going to show you how you can scale these like you never have been able to before. And I'm not going to dig into the rest of this. It's kind of obvious, but we build great tools, great application services, great databases, great AI portfolios to do all the things you need to do in an application. So today, you know, how do you start to build an AI app? And most of us probably have these traditional apps: monolithic, operation heavy, hard to scale. You know, you have to scale your database up, limited performance. You have to buy new hardware. What I want to tell you is, you know, in a perfect world, you probably hear, hey, you should move everything to Kubernetes or containers or, you know, anything in the cloud, microservices, all these things. What I'll tell you is, what we're going to show today is you don't have to do all those steps. This is perfect if you want to build a brand new application, but we want to build the tools to help you take your existing applications and add all these great new capabilities to them without rewriting them from scratch. And so new apps should obviously be the cloud-based AI-ready app that you see on the right here. But traditional apps, we have great support for doing those today as well. And so what we're going to do is, we've got a couple of demos that we have here. We're going to take an app that was written about 10 years ago, and we're going to use a tool we call the Azure Migrate Family. It's a tool that you can run that will go scan your network and find all the applications out there and build a report for you. And then we have other tools you can give to your developers that you can run on that code, on those actual projects, and help you migrate those apps. And we'll do a demo of that. Next, we're going to talk about Better Together, which is we're using AI you know, to look at your app in Azure and go, hey, for the app you have, maybe you should add these other services, because based on all the data we've had over the years, we can help you there. And so we're going to come do a demo of that. And then in this case, this is an old music store written a long time ago. You know, imagine the next Taylor Swift album comes out, and you got to make sure your backend can scale to crazy numbers. We're going to show Flex Functions in Azure, and that's a new thing that we just released today. That actually lets you scale functions from 0 instances to tens, 20, hundreds in seconds. So it's massive scaling. And then, once again, as I said before, you don't have to rewrite everything in your application. We're going to show Logic Apps, and I'm going to be able to go take a database from this old music store and ask questions about how could I increase my album sales and stuff like that. And so, a bunch of really cool demos to kind of show how you can work your way through adding some AI, some scalability, and getting your app into the cloud. Okay. So with that, let's flip over to Visual Studio. And first off, I want to show this is the Azure Migrate application and code assessment tool. I'm showing the .NET version of it, but we have one of these for Java. So this is basically a tool you can install into Visual Studio. If you're a Java developer, you would actually install this in the command line, and you can run this tool to get your app ready for the cloud. So let's go over here. And what I'll do is I'll just right-click on my app. And I've got this new Replatform to Azure. And so I'm going to click that. And now I'm in the AppCat tool. And what I'm going to do is click New Report. And in my case, it's a legacy application. I'm probably going to move this to App Service in Windows. So I'm going to select that, my target choice here. I'll click Next. And I can select which projects I care about. I really care about the music store. And actually, before I get here, well, I'll do it afterwards. Now it's like, what projects do you want and components do you want to analyze? I really just care about the source code. and I'm going to click Analyze. And so this is going to build me a nice pie chart showing me what's mandatory, optional, potential, or just information and things that might help me. And so let's go over there and let's aggregate these things together into a list. And I'll drill down and talk about a few of these. One of these is identity. And basically it's saying that my app uses Windows authentication, which is not supported on Azure App Service. So I need to make these changes to my application before I get it running in the cloud. I can go look at things like, let's scroll down here. I've got connection strings here. And so my app is using connection strings, and it says, maybe I should use something else for that. Let's go look at a couple more of these. I'll go look at runtime. In this particular case, it's saying, hey, I've noticed that you're running on, and I know the text is a little small, you're running on an old version of .NET Framework. Azure App Service is going to be running a more modern version. This is more informational. .NET Framework is super compatible, and so this is probably not a problem, but I likely want to retarget my application to use the newer version as part of this. And not only that, we made this even better than that. I can go down, let's go back to aggregate here, and I will close this. And let's go down to connection strings. So connection strings are something that we did back in the .NET Framework days. We put these in a file called webconfig. Not the best way to do this. We have more modern ways of doing this. And so I can actually use things like Copilot. And I can go to Copilot and say, hey, go take a look at this and give me some suggestions of what I would actually have to do to my app to change my app to make it better. And the Copilot's not been the fastest today at build, but we'll let it think here. And there it goes. It comes back with a whole bunch of suggestions. And let's go scroll up here. And it's like, hey, I've got connection strings. I should basically use configuration builders instead. That's a way to let me take my configuration and move it out of the web config. I can even think things like, does this help me move to Key Vault? Key Vault is a service in Azure where you would store connection strings and stuff like that. It's going to go think it. Yes, it says, yes, you are right. Using this change in my code would actually help me move to a Key Vault if I want to. And you can see all the instructions of how to do that are right here. So I think it's pretty exciting that the app shows me all the mandatory things I've got to do and a couple of the optional things. It's got Copilot everywhere for every single one of these options to help me actually migrate my application. So I'm going to cheat a little bit here. I'm going to go and say, let's go and move my source code to the version of the source code where I've actually fixed all these things. Yeah. And so let's go over here, and I'll rerun the report. And now I've got a much cleaner report. You can see I fixed all these issues that were called out. Wasn't that fast? I'm such a fast developer. Never missed the keyboard once, made a typo on the keyboard once. And I'm left with a couple things here that are still left. I'll aggregate these again. And some of these are like scale. And this is just suggestions. These aren't required. And it's saying that, hey, I've got a lot of static files on disk. Maybe I'd get more performance if I moved my static files to a CDN. And as I said, the tool is actually a really cool tool. And after I've done all these changes, I can actually publish this tool, this application up to Azure. And I have it here. Here, if I go to the Azure portal, this is my MVC Music Store Dev001. And I've got it running here. And you can tell it's a very modern-looking application with these beautiful yellow icons for folders. This is what Windows might have looked like a decade ago. But the point is, we were able to easily move this application to Azure by scanning it, looking at those recommendations, using Copilots to help, and to get the application online. Now with that, I'm going to ask Grace to come up, and we're going to talk about what we call Better Together. This is something that Grace has worked on the product team. And this, as I said before, once you get your app in the cloud, what are the next services you should use to enhance your application?
Hey, Scott.
Thank you.
Hey, everyone, I'm Grace. All right, so let's get to Better Together. Now, we have an application in the Azure portal. We have it up and running. But hey, I want to make sure that I'm on the right track. Like, how do we make it better? So I'm going to actually ask it to the Azure Copilot. So what I'm going to do here is open the Azure Copilot, and I'm going to start on a blank slate because it does take my context into consideration. And I want to ask a general architectural question. So I want to understand, hey, what's commonly deployed with apps like this, the music store? And I've got the prompt right here, so instead of having everyone watch me type, which is a little bit painful.
And nervous.
Yeah, nerve-wracking. I'm going to select that here. And what this is going to do is actually look at what I've got, so what we've got in this running application, what I'm trying to build, and compare that to all the other apps out there that have been successful, and let us know what we're missing, what we can do better.
And that's cool. We have a decade worth of apps in App Service today, so it's like, it's got lots of data to look at.
Exactly. So let's take a look at what it's giving us. So it's given us a list of recommendations. We're just going to look at the first one just as a high-level overview, but looks like it's suggesting that we consider SQL database. Now, this is pretty cool because this is going to be managed. You can do less work in terms of SQL database. And also, why is this recommending SQL database? Well, look at that. It looks like 58% of customers, just like myself, or in this case, our music app, is using SQL database for this purpose. And so we can understand exactly why these suggestions are showing up the way they are.
And I love this recommendation because, as I said before, the reason that moving apps to the cloud makes them more reliable and less downtime is because now you don't have to worry about being on the next version of SQL. It just happens automatically. You don't have to worry about patching anything. It just happens automatically. So
exactly. Less work on you. All right, so let's say I have a specific architectural question. Now, the Copilot can answer that as well as part of Better Together. So what I'm going to do is ask about distributed caching, for example, because I'm curious, hey, how else can we make our app better? We can potentially make it a little faster, through caching. So again, it's going to think a little. This is live, by the way, so it's real Copilot action. But again, it's going to look at what we've got and what we're trying to do, and tell us what the recommendation is. Now, sometimes it can be a little inaccurate because it takes the previous context into consideration. So what I'm going to do here is actually start us on a blank slate, so a brand new chat right here. And let's run that prompt again, because sometimes it does, glitch a little. And again, we're going to wait for it to think a little. And this is a real live demo, so we're going through.
Well, I loved it, even though I saw Azure Defender up there, and we mentioned before in the earlier slide about making your apps more secure, and I love the fact that that's one of the things that came up in that list is something that can help me make my app more secure. Nice.
Exactly. So in this case, for caching, it's recommending Azure Cache for Redis. And again, it's telling us exactly why this is happening. But the cool thing is you can actually create the Redis cache instance from here, or you can use the new Better Together capability that you can access from the sidebar right here. And what that does is it shows me a selection of services that are commonly deployed with app service apps like mine.
Nice.
Yeah, and what it does here, you get all the information you may need in order to make a decision here. But the cool thing is I can actually go to create. And what that does is it shows me a really quick create experience so that I don't have to worry.
This is way less questions than I normally would see. I would normally see like tabs of questions and stuff like that, just down to 2 simple questions to build a cache.
Exactly. It also connects it for you, so you don't have to hunt around, and it makes your life a little more easy.
Super cool.
Yeah, exactly. So this is how you can make your app better through services.
Cool. Thank you, Grace.
Thanks, Scott.
Once again, it would not be built without AI everywhere, right? So if I go back to my app in Visual Studio, I brought up this API controller. I mentioned before scalability, and we have these new functions that we just released today in Azure. And this is my shopping cart controller. It's got this order submitted service model, submit order method here. And that's literally when you check out, and you're going to go check out of the shopping cart. This is the code that's going to run here. And imagine if there's a crazy new album out or it's a holiday season or whatever, this might have to scale. Now, historically, what we would say is, rewrite the entire app. In this case, what we're going to do is we're going to take this, this API, yank it out of here, and we're going to move it into an Azure function. And so I'm just going to go over here and cheat a little bit. And I'm going to move to a fork of this that has this moved out to an Azure function. And so Azure functions, if you don't know about them, they are a serverless feature we've had in Azure for a long, long time for building things just like this. And I'm super excited. This is a .NET application. And one of the other things that we're doing here is we've added great new support for modern .NET in Azure Functions. And so if you're coming from the .NET world, you're probably used to having methods that return an action result. So we've got full support for that. You might be used to doing things like, if I scroll over here, my shopping cart, it's got a from body, which means order, which is something that looks kind of like this. This is what the order is. I don't have to serialize all those from JSON. We do all the model binding to serialize that automatically for you. So we're bringing all these great ASP.NET features directly into Azure Functions. And so here's the app here. You can see that it does some work here, then sends it to a backend worker. Nothing super exciting here. Functions also has a great feature, which is we can run the functions runtime locally on your machine, or we can run it in the cloud. And so in this case, I'm actually running it locally here. You can see it starting up. There it goes. And if I want, I can go back to my application, and I can call it right from Visual Studio. This will send a request. We'll open a tab window, and you see the response came through. So I know my function works locally, and now I'm ready to go and push this up to Azure and scale it like we've never been able to before. So let me go back to the browser, and we'll go to Functions. And what I've got here is here's the function already published up to Azure. And I want to show just one quick thing here. As I mentioned before, this is a new version of Functions. You can see it's running on Linux, and it's using what we call flex consumption. That's a new SKU of functions that just came out today. And it's got these great scalability capabilities inside of it. So let's go see what happens if we scale this application up. And so what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to go over to, I have an instance of the load test service that we have in Azure in the portal here. And what I'm going to do is click into my, this is how you would actually test your application at scale. I'm going to go and click into this. And let me go back over here. I think that's what I wanted. Click into here. And there's a couple things I can do. I can click on Configure, Test. And you're going to see I've got some crazy scale stuff set here in a second. Let's go over to all of these. Here's my load. And you can see that I'm going to run 5 engines. And then each of these engines is going to run linearly. And it's going to have 50 users per engine. So I'm going to create a lot of load on my app. I want to make sure I'm ready to scale up and run at crazy scale. This kind of shows you what's going to happen here. My friend Paul over in the front row there should have actually kicked this off. I don't see it happening yet, which is what I actually wanted. You can see I'm currently running at 0 instances. Oh, it just went to 1. And so we should see this scale up at a very rapid rate in a second here. I will tell you that I probably went a little fast for Paul through this. The load test service, the way it works is it actually creates a Kubernetes cluster and then boots up a bunch of virtual machines that'll start throwing load at the application. And so it does take a little bit of time to kick up. If you notice here, look at this. I am now running 11 servers. So it was running 1 just a second ago. Now you can start to see the load kick in over here. You can see the request rates, and they'll just continue to accelerate. Now we're at 15 servers. So just as I'm sitting here on stage and talking, we went from 0 to 1 to 11 to 15, and this will keep going up as that load test starts building more momentum. Isn't that cool? And I can look at things like CPU down here, and you can see we're not actually loading the CPU as much as we could. that's something that I would go and optimize and try to use more of the CPU of these instances. Now you see we're at almost 4,000 requests a second, and that'll just keep ramping up. And so this is Azure Flex Functions, super cool, available today, try it out. But once again, to my point about that application is I didn't rewrite the entire application. I moved it to the cloud. I've taken this one piece of it, pulled it out, and now I'm using the new capabilities to make it scalable. So with that, I'm going to move to Logic Apps. So the best way to show Logic Apps is I'm going to go grab a snippet of text here. And let's go over here, Logic Apps. And I've got this legacy SQL database, as I mentioned before. It's got lots of data. We've been running this music store for over a decade. And I want to go do some AI on it. Do I have to go rewrite the app from scratch or build a new application to do that? Not at all. A lot of folks aren't aware of Logic Apps, which is our integration story for Azure. And so what I've done here is I've got a special Logic app that I can actually associate with a Teams. And so what I'm going to do here is take this. Here it is, prompt. And I'm going to go to my Teams instance down here. And I'm sitting in here. I've got a channel in Teams. And I can just put a post in here. And what happens is when I say prompt, that's the thing that triggers the Logic app. And it will send this text to the Logic app. And I said, provide insights and recommendations using sales data on how to improve album sales. Once again, I've not modified the app at all. And I'll show you how this works in just a second. Let's do a post. And it'll take a second for this to happen. And maybe while I'm waiting for that to happen, I will jump over. Let's just give it a second before I move on and show how this actually works. OK, so this is pretty cool. I've got a lot of data here. The top selling genre is rock, followed by jazz and Latin music. So it just went and figured that out for me. Some of the top selling artists include Metallica, Led Zeppelin, Deep Purple. Consider promoting albums by these popular artists. It's gone and figured out, this mouse pointer is not making me happy. OK. I'm going to give up on the mouse pointer. Improve online presence, but notice it gave me a whole bunch of ideas. I didn't have to go rewrite the application. I took my legacy database, pointed this tech at it, and it just works. So how does that work? What do we do to make that work? So here I am in the portal. And I'm going to show, first off, I'm going to show the Logic app that we just saw here, which is, let's make sure I'm in the right one. When keywords are mentioned, and once again, here's my keyword. My keyword is prompt. I tell it which channel in Teams I want it to work on. That is build, BRK120. Imagine that, this room. So I gave it, said, when it hears that prompt, what it's supposed to go do is invoke a workflow on that prompt. And then when it's done with that workflow, it's going to basically post the message that it found from that workflow into the actual channel. And then finally, if one of my colleagues, I can't see her because the light's over there, she will get an email. So every time I do this, she gets an email with the results of this. And that was just done as a backup to seeing it inside of Teams. And so in a simple workflow like this, I can make all that happen. Now, how does that work? Well, that's tied to yet another workflow. So this is the one, where an HTTP request is received. We want to execute a query. Let's go click that. And you can see we wrote a bunch of SQL to go suck all that information out of the SQL database so we can get a big chunk of data that we can pass to the AI tech. So then we're going to invoke another workflow. And this workflow is the workflow that actually knows how to go do AI stuff. And so I've got one workflow that all it does is goes to Teams, looks for the prompt. When it sees the prompt, it goes and runs one of these workflows to go do more work. So let's go to the next workflow. Now, what next workflow is the one where most of the magic kind of happens at. And so once again, when it's called, the first thing it's going to do is chunk and tokenize. If you know anything about AI, you can't take OpenAI and go give it like 30 gigs of data. If you do, it'll blow up. And so we have to go find ways to chunk and tokenize that data so we can go put it somewhere where we can see more data. So first I chunk and tokenize that data. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to go to OpenAI, AI, and it's going to go get me some embeddings for this. And we are then going to index a bunch of documents, all that text and stuff that you just saw before. And so what this technically does behind the scenes, if you think about this, is this takes all that data, it chunks it up, it vectorizes it, and it puts it into a vector database behind the scene, in this case, AI search. And then what happens is when you make a query, when you ask something, what actually happens is we convert that question you asked into a vector. We find the stuff inside of our vector database that matches the most close to that. We shove all that into OpenAI, and then you get your response back out of there. And so, and then finally, the final step of this is the thing that's being run from both of these things is it gets the search query, it goes and gets the embedding, it does a vector search, which creates the prompt, we get the chat completions and return them. And so the cool thing about this is I wrote no code in my application. I wrote a couple of these workflows. These workflows would work for any documents, not just my SQL data, any document you can think of. And so I think that Logic Apps is something we just kind of don't consider in many cases because we're hardcore developers that want to write C# or C++ or Java or Python or whatever. But this is a great way to go take any app you have today and go suck the data out of it and ask awesome AI questions against that. Now, we've done all that. The next thing is, how do we help optimize our application? So I'm going to have Grace come back up again. And we're going to show how we can take the music store that we've been running forever and forever, and how we can use AI to go help us figure out how to make the app run better, run faster. And so this is code optimization inside of Visual Studio.
Hey, Scott.
Cool. Thanks for coming up.
Long time no see. All right, so let's head over to the portal itself. And OK, so let's say we have our app running. It's been running for a while, like you said, and maybe we've run a couple sales, you know, our favorite artists, or actually your favorite artist, Taylor Swift, came up with a new album, maybe. And we want to make sure that it's running properly. So how do we make the performance better, for example? So here we are in Application Insights, and right off the bat, over here we see no failed requests, which is a good sign to start with. That was a big sale. You see here that the server response time is kind of variable, and it kind of varies with the load. And so we want to look into it.
This is awesome. I mean, before what you would do is developers go look at over all your code and go guess what might be slow. And you're going to show us how the AI can do this for me?
Exactly. Yeah. No more flame charts. No more digging in. So here I'm going to head over into the Performance tab, right into this corner over here, and I'm actually going to zoom in to the period of time that I cared about. So this is where the load was high, where we had our sale, and we can actually see what the request count looks like, as well as what the latency looks like. What I actually care about, though, is the trace. So here, each of these triangles actually represents a separate profile trace during that time period. And this is the load over here.
Interesting.
So what I can do is download and analyze all of these traces myself and find out what's going on, find out what's wrong, like you said. You know, that's the way that we used to do things. But that's kind of tedious, and there are other things that I'd rather be doing on a Tuesday evening, don't you think?
I think so as well.
All right, so what I can do is scroll down a little. I can see some code optimizations generated by the AI. So let's click into it to learn more.
Cool.
Now, what I'm going to see here is a bunch of optimizations that the AI has suggested. So I can see memory, I can see CPU optimizations, and I can also see it stack ranked by impact. So in this case, 16% of my memory was taken by this method.
Cool.
What I'm going to do here is look into this CPU issue with the database. And let's take a look at what's going on over here. We can see that 4% of the CPU was spent here, and the benchmark was less than 1%. Now, this benchmark was generated by AI using hundreds of Microsoft services. And that is going to give us the best practices because we know that AI is looking through all of these code bases without us having to analyze it ourselves.
So basically, it's like you're using 4%, you should be using less than 1%. We're going to flag this because of that, and so we should go look and see what might cause that.
Exactly. So the next step is, what do you do about it? So we have a new preview capability with recommendations where we can take a look at what the LLM has generated. And what I'm really interested in is this particular suggestion. Consider using as-no tracking.
Because we're only reading data.
Exactly.
So if you know anything about NED framework, it actually keeps information around assuming you might make a change to the data. In this case, we know we're not going to ever change the data because we're just showing a listing of stuff.
Exactly.
So why do we even have that turned on? I don't even know.
Exactly. It's a wonder. So the cool thing is this is a code level optimization. And if I'm already coding, I actually don't have to leave Visual Studio. So let me flip over to Visual Studio so that we can take a look at that optimization. Oh, this is kind of interesting, actually. I'm going to take a look at the code base here. And do we have a different code base that we were working from in terms of the music store? Let me take a look. It's going to take a second to boot up, but what we're going to see is the exact same conversation, the exact same code level optimization inside Copilot Chat. So I'm going to go ahead and boot up Copilot Chat right here as soon as Visual Studio is ready for us. I'm going to flip over here, and GitHub Copilot has a bunch of capabilities related to code optimization. So what I'm going to do is start up that chat again. So I'm going to type in @code optimizations. That's the prompt that's going to call up this capability and then paste in the code base that I wanted to take a look at. This is a preview capability inside Visual Studio, so if you're interested, feel free to sign up for this. And what we've got here is a list of suggestions. And we're not going to go through every single one, but you can see that there are actual code level optimizations that are actually quite similar to the ones that we just saw inside the Azure portal.
I love this. We actually went from the portal to the tool, and now we're seeing the exact same results, and we can take an action on them.
Exactly. So here's one thing we can do. Let's take a look at this code fix. Is that the one that we are looking for? Looks like I'm trying to take a look at whether we can find that same database suggestion so that we can show that capability. But what I can actually do, number 5, all right, so I'm going to select the 5th code fix just to take a look at what it's doing.
We were talking about this UI today, actually, just comically enough. So.
Oh, yeah. Yep, we're constantly evolving and changing the UI. But what I can do here is this piece of code here has already been selected for me. So what I can do is preview this code level change. So this is really cool. You see that there's a diff now, and it's showing me what exactly it's been doing inside my code. So here, it's shown me
as-no tracking.
As-no tracking right here.
That's pretty cool. AI in the portal figures out what's going on in the application, and now we're in Visual Studio. We can ask it the same questions, and it can actually help us make the code changes.
Exactly. If I like it, I can accept it. If not, I can tweak it, and that's how we can make our code better.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
So back to what we said before. You saw us use the migration tool to take an old app, get it ready for the cloud. You saw us use Better Together to go figure out the best services to actually enhance our application based on all the apps we've seen in app service over the years. We were able to take our order processing and scale it to crazy levels very quickly with new Azure Flex functions. And then using Logic Apps, I was able to go build some AI so I could actually learn sales insights for my application without writing any code. And then finally, we were able to take this old application and enhance the performance just with AI. And once again, kind of highlighting, we offer great migration tools, enterprise app patterns. We got great services and great AI services, and we showed you a combo of all those together. I'm going to just jump over here and skip because we're out of time. Here's a bunch of related sessions if you want to go and learn more about all the stuff that we said here today. And if you want to try Naga, but I think we're less than 30 seconds of time to do this.
Perfect. Thank you, Scott and Grace. Let's give a huge round of applause for the demo team here. Fantastic demo. So that's a great example of using AI throughout the life cycle and to modernize an app in Infuse. So with that, check out the resources that Scott shared. I think we are out of time here, but feel free. Oh, there you go. So that's still there. And then if you maybe go to the previous one, Scott, I will just talk about it. So we do have like a variety of programs. If you talk to our partners or account teams, you can start today with envisioning workshop, proof of concept, all the way to production. Check out the programs like Azure Migrate and Modernize or Azure Innovate. With that, thank you all for taking the time. So it was a pleasure to have you all here. I'm happy to take any questions after this.
Thanks, Naga.
Thank you.